Welcome to CPC's Candidate Forum. I'm Richard Nelson, Executive Director and founder of the Commonwealth Policy Center, here with Mark Metcalf. He is the Republican candidate for state treasurer. Mark, welcome to the program.
Richard, thanks for having me.
Hey, just for the record, CPC does these candidate forums every election cycle, and we invite leading candidates of both political parties. Your opponent, Michael Bowman, has been invited, but he declined to respond. So you've got a half hour to tell the voters why you're running for office, what you do if you're elected. And I would gather that there's a lot of Kentuckians that are probably wondering right now, what in the heck does a state treasurer do? So let's start with that. What is a state treasurer, state treasurer's responsibility, and what do they do?
Well, there are several duties, among which include the receipt and the payment of all monies owed to or collected by or owed by the Commonwealth. That's the first duty. The second duty is to provide for financial literacy to our high school seniors. I want to broaden that to reach down into the grades. So instead of one block of instruction in your senior year, you'll have blocks of instruction throughout your education in primary and secondary. The third thing to keep in mind is that the treasurer is obligated by state law to report on those businesses wanting to do trade or business with the state, and whether those same businesses are discriminating against fossil fuel producers. And the third, and perhaps equally important, is the obligation of the treasurer to make certain that through the retirement and pension funds that are available to our retirees, that those funds are properly managed. And in this case, we are dealing with now large money managers, primarily from New York, who are trying to impose a woke agenda on pension funds across America. And I intend to be vocal in my support of Kentucky's fossil fuel producers and protect them so that we receive the highest value for our retirement dollars here in Kentucky.
Let's talk, if I could interrupt, let's talk about that for a minute, about the woke agenda that some of the big bankers or investment advisors have. What you're referring to is something known as ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And it came to light some time ago that some of these big investment firms were discriminating against investments in fossil fuels, in particular. In the case that you're talking about, Kentucky is a major coal producing state, and this ESG prism that these financial advisors are looking through would hurt Kentucky. What role would the state treasurer have in influencing that policy?
Well, the state treasurer is, first of all, to report to the General Assembly regarding the conduct of these money managers and whether they are actually discriminating against fossil fuels. Once that decision is made and I make that call, assuming that I'm the person doing the job, the next thing to do is to advise them through the General Assembly. Either you stop discriminating, you have 90 days to quit discriminating against the fossil fuels produced here in Kentucky, and if you don't, we're going to end our contracts with you. The more realistic approach to take, and it's one I favor, is to allow, just to tell them you're in violation, and we're simply going to allow our contracts with you to expire. I'm talking about the money managers. Allow the contracts to expire, and then do business with someone who will protect the fiscal interests of our retirement funds and our pensioners by investing in businesses that provide a very good return, profitable return for our investment dollars.
Yeah. Your background is in law. You've been working as the Garrett County Attorney since 2010. You probably could retire in that position if you would choose to. You also have a military background. You have been a U.S. Army reservist for a number of years, I think going back to Iraq. Is that correct? How long have you been in the reserves?
Well, I finished my career 3 years ago. I was in the Kentucky Army National Guard, which is a form of reserve. You have two reserves. You have the U.S. reserves, and then you have the National Guards of each state. In this case, I was in the Kentucky Army National Guard for 29 years, and during that time I was mobilized and deployed to Iraq, and Kentucky's 149th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade closed American combat operations in Iraq in 2011.
Okay. So why are you running for state treasurer?
Well, first of all, it was not an easy decision. I love the job I have. I've done it for 22 years now. So it didn't start in 2010. It actually started much earlier than that. But the last 4 terms that I've served have began in 2010. During that time, before that time, I was served in the administration of George W. Bush, handling election reform, border security. I was in the domestic security section of the criminal division in the Justice Department, and I was prosecuting men and women who were in cartels who were trying to smuggle aliens into the United States. And there was a human trafficking division there, then dimension there. Then I was sent to Guantanamo Bay, where I handled some of the bad guys there. And then I was appointed to the U.S. Immigration Court in Miami, Florida. I had a tough time with this, and I prayed over it about how I could spend let's say the downside of my career, let's say the later years of it. How could I best contribute? And I decided to run for state treasurer. When I saw what large corporations were attempting to do to men and women in the coal fields, who are the hardest working people on the planet, I decided that I knew that my calling would be to run for this office. I had served Harold Rogers as one of his aides coming out of college. I knew how important coal was to Kentucky, but how important it is to have abundant and cheap energy available to America. And so I decided that running for treasurer was the right thing to do.
Now, of course, you've held office at the county level, county attorney in Garrett County, but you've also run for office. You ran for U.S. Congress back in the 1990s and came up a little bit short, didn't you? Tell us about that.
Well,
close race, wasn't it?
It was indeed. In 1996, I ran for Congress. It was the 6th Congressional District, which is Lexington, at that time, Fayette County, and 18 other counties. Ernie Fletcher and I squared off in the primary. We became good friends in the process. He defeated me by 4 votes, fair and square.
Okay, I just want to go back to that. 4 votes out of how many hundreds of thousands cast? It was a lot, and I don't want to put you on the spot. That was several years ago.
Yeah.
But we're talking in a congressional district today. A congressional district comprises about 750,000 people. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's fewer people that show up in the primary, but it was a good number of voters that showed up in that primary back in 1996. And it was only 4 votes that differentiated you from Ernie Fletcher, who not only won the congressional seat that year, he went on to become Kentucky governor.
Indeed.
In 2001.
A very fine man and a very fine governor, a very fine congressman. And I'm sorry that he's not serving today in some capacity, but he has always been a giver back to the public, and I'm sure he's doing that now through the practice of medicine. But how did that affect my life? Well, he gets me out of bed every morning during this race and gets me up and out the door, visiting with voters. I won 15 of those 19 counties that were in the 6th Congressional District. It's the best race I ever lost. I have no regrets, and I was defeated by a man who proved his worth later on. So he, in one way or in another way, he put a W in both our columns.
I had a chance to visit with you and a couple of your close friends who worked on that campaign. This was at Fancy Farm.
Right.
And I remember one of your friends, the name will not be disclosed right now, but mentioned if they knew that race would have been that close, they were certain that they could have gotten 4 or 5 other people to vote for you if they had made a few extra phone calls that day. Not that they didn't work hard, not that they laid everything out on the table, but the point is this, is we do not know how close an election may be, and it could be the case in this treasurer's race.
Absolutely.
Mark, to your point about working hard, you have been working hard. been spying on you, if you will, checked out your Facebook page. And here's where you've been just in the last couple of weeks: Powell County, Washington County, Madison County, Franklin, Lincoln. You went to the GOP Fall Picnic in Greenup County. You were at Court Day in Montgomery County. You went to the Garrett County Fish Fry, the Fleming County Tractor Parade, the Jefferson County Women's Luncheon, the Clark County Republican Women's Soup Supper. Now that was a number of events just within the last few weeks here. What does that do to a person when they're traveling across the state and meeting people and speaking to groups? Are you holding together okay?
Thank you for asking. We've done all those in the last 9 days, and more that didn't make the Facebook page. But a friend of mine texted me recently, asked how I was doing, and I said I'm staying after it and not letting up, keeping our foot on the gas, so to speak. The response was, "You've taken tired to a new level." So I'm not. I have no regrets when this is over. That's why we're giving it our best every day. And if we win, we win. And if we lose, we have no regrets.
Running for office is like a great big job interview. It's not just one person or a team of people that you're interviewing with, but it's all of the voters. Anybody who's registered and has a chance to weigh in on your candidacy, they're the ones that you're trying to persuade to vote for you or to give you that job. And yet at the same time, Mark, it's something where you're totally pouring yourself out. You're going to have all kinds of questions asked of you. You're put through the ringer by a lot of the media outlets oftentimes. And what did you learn from that first campaign, and even taking it into today? What did you learn about this very public job interview? What are some of the things that perhaps you'd say to anybody else looking to run for office as you campaign and as you make the case for your candidacy? What are some of the takeaways that people would be interested in hearing as you put yourself out there, good, bad, otherwise? What are some of the things that you take away?
Well, dignify everyone, respect everyone, even people who disagree with you. Offer a firm handshake, a steady eye, and answer the questions as directly as possible. So those are the initial takeaways, and then the secondary takeaways are always the subtext of running for office, which is treat it like a job. If you treat it like a job, you won't cheat it. You will work as hard as you possibly can, as long as you can each day. And so when you turn in at night, you have no lingering doubts that you did your best throughout the day. So I think that's the major takeaway.
Okay.
Two major takeaways.
What are you hearing from these several groups that you've been speaking to and interacting with over the past 9 days? What are people saying to you? What's on their mind? What are their concerns? What are they saying?
That's how you learn about what's important to people, as you talk to them. And more importantly, listen to them. And that has shaped the way we campaign. When I hear them speak these days, as we're getting closer to Election Day, they're truly worried about the future of the state and also worried about the future of America. They think this is not the nation I grew up in. I don't recognize it anymore. The aspects of respect for each other, and then respect for our country. Saying the national anthem, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, singing the national anthem, respect for your neighbors, and an understanding how hard many people have to work just to get by. And there seems to be a disregard for that that is brought to my attention every day. And the question is, what do we do? And my answer, in one way or another, comes out as, well, what got us to our place where we were great? And you go back to what John Adams said, we are good not because we are great. We are great because we are good. And so those values, that a work ethic, deep-seated faith, treating others as you want to be treated yourself. My dad was county attorney, was an assistant United States attorney under Dwight Eisenhower later became county attorney for 28 years, and the first day I was sworn in, on the day I was sworn in to my first term, he says, "Let me give you a piece of advice you didn't ask for. Always return every phone call, never refuse a meeting, and treat others like you want to be treated yourself. It's the right thing to do." And he said, the practical aspect of it is if you do that, there's a good chance that people will want to reelect you. And so I've tried to live that way. I've never lost a race in Garrett County, and the two races that I have lost were very narrow losses in much larger races. But I got through the primary this time, and using the same lessons my father imparted back in 1990.
Okay. Since you quoted John Adams, I'm going to share another famous quote that Adams said when he spoke to the Massachusetts militia. He said, "Our Constitution was made for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." What is your view of faith informing a candidate's positions on the issues? There are some, Mark, who say that you should keep your faith over here. It's okay to worship on Sunday mornings, but your faith should not inform your positions. How do you respond to that?
I think faith should inform your positions. I believe that is probably the most important aspect of any person's life is their relationship with God. And with a solid foundation in faith, our relationship with God tells us how we treat others. It informs the way we do business. It allows us to be good, or tells us how to be good office holders. To dignify the public by respecting everyone who comes in, regardless of their problem. And I told my employees the first day I was sworn in to whatever the last day may be, is to treat others like you want to be treated yourself. That doesn't mean you give them what they want. It doesn't mean that their problems are impossible to address. It means that we do our best to answer their concerns and find solutions where we can. And if we have to send them someplace else, the saying that I use is an old Army saying, and that is give them a warm handoff. In other words, call the office that can help them and tell them this person is on their way. And that's the warm handoff. So we try to treat people with dignity, respect. Well, no, we don't try to. We treat everyone with dignity and respect by doing the things that you should do, returning your phone calls, taking your meetings, treating people like you want to be treated yourself, and all of that is informed by faith.
So what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that if you were elected to the state treasurer, that would be a priority for your office.
Absolutely.
The current office holder, Allison Ball, was asked to send out checks to Kentuckians affected by disasters, the floods in eastern Kentucky, the tornadoes in western Kentucky, and she found that there were close to 200 checks that were going to people who were unaffected by the floods. She withheld sending those checks out. Since then, she has called for an audit. In fact, I've had a chance to have Allison on the program, and she reached out to the Bashir team with no response. They're not willing to work with her. They're not willing to have an audit or open their books to her office. Is she responding in the right way? Now, the charges that the Bashir administration has is she's being partisan. She shouldn't be doing what she's doing. Is Allison Ball, and I'm not trying to trap anybody, but I'm wondering, as far as the role of the state treasurer goes, is that an appropriate response to ask to look at the books and then when they're not open to call for an audit?
Well, I think it is. I think she's done exactly what she should do. She is quick and careful to point out that on the front end, she's going to be reviewing all obligations that should be paid. When it was discovered that there were monies that had been paid which should not have been paid, she was right to bring the governor's attention to it and right to ask for an audit. And I'm hoping that the governor will relent and determine that the best application of public proceeds in this case would be to make certain that if mistakes have been made, that they don't happen again, and that any monies that should be refunded to the state are promptly refunded through correct legal action.
Yeah, current auditor Mike Harmon has also has also been looking into that. I'm not sure what the status is, but that definitely is a problem when the state sends money to people who really shouldn't be getting that money. Is that something that, if it's not resolved, if you are elected to state treasurer, is that something you will look into?
Yes, I intend to, first of all, review Allison's work and make certain that I agree with it. Once I've determined that she is correct, I will ask the auditor, whoever that person is, to engage in an audit. I will ask the Attorney General, whoever the Attorney General is, to sue on our behalf. And I have at least two attorneys working. I believe I have at least two attorneys working in the Treasurer's office who I could get to join in any lawsuits in an amicus manner, as well as serving as assistant counsel for anything that the Attorney General's office would do. So we have a number of things we can do, and I intend to do. But the easiest one is to say, let's look at the books. Let's see who received checks, who should have, and those who should not have received checks, and let's get the money that should be paid back to the state paid back.
Very good. Mark, you have said that your number one priority is to save taxpayer dollars, and you say this on your Facebook page. I've done more with less as a county attorney, and I'll continue to be a fiscal hawk as Kentucky's treasurer. So can you elaborate on this? In what ways have you done more with less? I guess we'll start with there in your position as county attorney of Garrett County.
Well, the first thing you asked me was, what are the important things the office does? And that is to make certain that we receive the money that we should receive and pay it out. And I've frequently said that I'm going to find ways to save money as opposed to spend money. I believe that taxpayers deserve accountability from government. As county attorney, I've not sought nor have I received an increase in our budget from the Garrett Fiscal Court in 3 fiscal years now. And we have improved salaries through allocations made through the Attorney General's office, as well as through diversion programs, which my office has developed, which has saved the taxpayers in Garrett County a lot of money. How much, I can't really tell you off the top of my head. And we also reduced our staff by 25%. I know that the figure of 20 has been used, but actually by 25%. In other words, we have fewer people working for us today, but we got them the right technology, and we got skilled people in the office who know what to do and can do their jobs more efficiently than, say, others who didn't have the same training. So we have, I think the people of Garrett, hopefully the people of Garrett County believe that I've given them more than their money's worth. Okay. And I intend to do the same thing for Kentucky.
Speaking of money, I'm going to pivot to fundraising. Your opponent, Michael Bowman, has raised, according to the latest KREF report, $93,000. You've raised $62,000. Is that enough money that you've raised to get out your message to the voters?
Yes, it is. You're including his in-kind contributions, which is not cash. It's what the Democrat Party has done for him. You don't see that on mine. We're going to be, I believe by the time we're done, we will have raised more than $70,000. We'll put it all to work on the airwaves. I cover my own expenses when we travel. Okay. I don't look into what people have given me to support myself on the road. It comes out of my own pocket, which is my own in-kind contribution to the race. I have worked hard to obtain or acquire the confidence of the people who have supported me. I'll work hard to keep it. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is to spend campaign money wisely and effectively and honestly. And that's what we're doing. I believe that the money we raise will be enough to see us to victory. And I make no boasts. I'm hopeful of a win. But I am out there working hard to make sure that happens.
Your opponent is running a campaign ad. It's also on his, I found it on his website. He may be running an ad. It looked like an ad to me. This is what it says in part. Out-of-touch Republicans in Frankfort are hurting our families. There are headlines of what the Republican legislature did, specifically regarding pro-life policies. He brought in cultural issues into his ad. Michael Bowman is pro-abortion, and he's criticizing the legislature's embrace of pro-life laws. Even though this doesn't have anything to do with the treasurer's race, are you weighing in on any of these culture issues like the right to life?
Well, I am squarely and firmly pro-life, and that's why I will conduct the office if that becomes relevant. The Democrats are saying this. They're claiming that they're all family oriented, but they support, or that they have supported the vetoes of the governor, which failed to defend the unborn. They have claimed to be family-oriented people, but they support the governor's veto of legislation which would have prohibited men from participating in women's sports. They've supported the governor's veto of legislation which would have denied which would have prohibited the sex reassignment surgery toward minors. And then lastly, they've been against the legislation which was pro-family, and it's designed to put more money back into the pockets of hardworking Kentucky families by cutting taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, that seems to me to be very anti-family in the way they've approached things, and that we're very pro-family just by contrast. And I believe Kentuckians are more on our side than on their side on the same issues.
You said that you want to reduce Kentucky's debt. According to the figure I'm looking at here, it's about $15.5 billion, if that's correct. How do you plan to do that? What's your goal for reducing Kentucky's debt?
Well, first of all, we don't raise taxes. Taxes are always the easy way out. We find efficiencies everywhere. We cut budgets. It doesn't mean we fire people. My goodness, we need good people working on behalf of the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. So we find technologies which will let us to do the jobs much more efficiently. We find programs that have outlived their use or being duplicated in other departments, and we shut down one in favor of the other. There's so many ways we can realize the best interests of taxpayers and all Kentuckians simply by looking for ways to save money. And remember, our largest expense right now is paying down the debts associated with our pension funds. Our pension funds are carrying $25.4 billion in unfunded liabilities. Mm-hmm. And if we look at that as an opportunity to take care of Kentuckians in the future by paying down these debts now, we started out with a 30-year payout because Republican leaders decided we're going to start making not only the payments that are due, because the Democrats did not, over a period of 22 years. They missed payments in 15 out of 22 fiscal years. Altogether, that was $3.8 billion, which never found its way into the pension funds. So now, by making the payments we should make and by making catch-up payments, we've gone from a 30-year payout to a 24-year payout just under Republican leadership in the General Assembly alone, without any help from the governor's office.
And is that something you'll continue to advocate for if you're elected treasurer?
Absolutely. But I'm also going to say, get away from these woke corporations. We can invest our money in things that provide a profitable yield so that we can continue paying the pensions of men and women who gave their lives working for Kentucky.
Very good. Mark, we are just about out of time. Do you have any final words to the voters? And you can look right into that camera and make your case as to why they should vote for you on Election Day.
Well, thanks for listening. If you like what I had to say, if you believe that Republican conservatives are the men and women who most address your needs and interests, I ask you to vote for me and the entire Republican ticket. Thanks for listening.
All right, and thank you for tuning in to CPC's Candidate Forum. And don't forget to get out and vote. Early voting begins on November the 2nd through the 4th, and Election Day is November the 7th.